For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats. For the ones who are hands-on, even from far away. And the ones keeping business moving forward. We are Grainger, offering supplies and solutions for every industry, with 24/7 support and experienced staff at over 250 local branches. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome to another Britflicks.com podcast. My name's Stuart Wright, and today's guest is Philip Virus. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Stuart, for having me. That's awesome.
Well, it is absolutely my pleasure because, and I'll give people, we're here to discuss Freakscene, the story of Dinosaur Jr., a documentary that you made about Dinosaur Jr. But before we get into it, I'd just like to give the listener a bit of a history lesson for me. I've realised in the preamble that the pair of us, me and Philip, are both children of 71.
Right.
But in terms of Dinosaur Jr., 1988 was October 1988 was when Bug came out. In that month, Superfuzz's Big Muff came out and Daydream Nation came out. That's essentially three pillars of my listening life came out while I was 16 years old. And it was only really watching your film and the closing track of Bug, which is Don't, which gets played at the reunion gigs at the end of the film. And this is hindsight talking. I didn't know this at the time, but Don't was a real gateway for me for so much noisy music in later life. Like I had no idea because Freakscene was a tune I heard at clubs when I was a teenager, alongside Touch Me, I'm Sick by Mudhoney. So, and Freakscene is a lovely melodic sort of post-Neil Young kind of grungy, proto-grunge tune. But yeah, no, Don't. I tolerated it at first because I had no idea, I had no reference points for it. But it was on the same album as Freakscene. So you keep listening to it and you keep, as was the time, physical record you listened to, didn't you? So I learned to live with it. And I think it kind of opened up my ears, I suppose, to accept that as being exciting. And it's interesting that Kim Gordon, Henry Rollins chose that song as one to perform with Dinosaur Jr., which, it's not the obvious one, but watching the documentary, maybe it is. The other side of this story is like looking at the imagery in your film as well. I will stop the history lesson. We will get onto your film. Is that A, I had a Sonic Live t-shirt like Lou Barlow's. B, I bought a smiley face with a bullet in the head after I saw the photograph of Jay wearing it. You really took me down memory lane with this film. So from me personally, congratulations, an amazing piece of work.
Thank you, man. It's really funny because everything you're saying, since we have really the same year, it's kind of parallel UK, Germany. It was exactly the same. I got into only that I discovered Sonic Youth later. I was, of course, at the early Martani shows in Berlin. I was at the Freakscene at Dinosaur Jr. at their first gigs in Berlin in 87, I think. And everything you're saying, I, hope to come across with, the certain energy, the 88, these couple of years where, my ear and perception of noise music and loud guitars and this whole grungy punk sound became so inspiring and as well forming for my own, for everything, like in terms of music taste and stuff. And there were other elements during that time as well. There was the hip hop getting better and better, so it's like really exciting time. And I just hope, to give people as well the smiley. We copied that in Berlin, the shirt as well with Shay. It was a German magazine, Specs magazine, who put that on a cover. And we copied Jay. I had long hair. We walked around with smiley. He was even a fashion icon for us during that time. So it's really cool to hear what you just told me. It's exactly mirrored in Germany.
Well, I mean, Germany was important for grunge in Britain because Glitterhouse was the label that was giving that was giving the music into. We were getting it into Britain via Glitterhouse, which is a German label, as I remember. So that time was a really energetic moment for sort of indie alternative music, because it had been this kind of, I guess, local sound, I guess, for the want of a better expression. Britain had its indie music and stuff, but then suddenly there was this kind of, I mean, it'd been growing, I suppose, with, post-punk and everything, but Husker Du and stuff never really went above ground. And I think it was the perfect, I mean, it's almost like the period just before, the calm before the storm, because by 91, as the film title goes, the year that punk rock broke. And I think what they meant was it broken as opposed to it broke through, because the major labels signed up the bands. And Mike, Azarad's book, Our Band Could Be Your Life, covers this brilliantly. It's like 1981 to 1991 was this brilliant period of people. And I think Henry Rollins touches on it in your documentary. It's like this idea of people making music for themselves and not really understanding who the audience was, but finding one. But I'm getting ahead of myself here with this, with these recollections. But it makes me very happy to feel like I was on a right. It was like, you don't know what path you're on, do you? And obviously, looking back,
it's totally right. Like, what for me it was as well so interesting that it came all at the same time, like mid '80s, heavy metal music, Slayer, all these bands, like they were all guitar extremes. But I have to say, Dinosaur really had this amazing mix of everything for my taste as a teenager, we were like coming from punk as a kid. I listened to punk rock music, and then we discovered, of course, Husker Du and all the American post-punk bands, however you want to call it, which made the lead into into harder music in indie. And so it was always funny. We were like, there was a better subculture than now, you had like punks, you had Teddy Boys, you had rockabillys. It was all really active. You could get kicked ass from skinheads everywhere, or I don't know. There was a real approach of subculture as well, because there was only mail order and vinyl, and flyers. You had to really, nowadays you have like Amazon and your phone, you just don't have to do anything to receive anything. And we had to really dive deep into certain subcultures to get the satisfaction. And, when an album came out, you were completely satisfied and happy to, it was like Christmas. You would find it or you would order it, and then you would listen to it with friends. And it was like a way more, approach. You had to do something to receive it. And I kind of miss that sometimes a little bit, if I have to say. The energy, a little bit more punk attitude nowadays would be great. What we had during that time.
No, totally. No, I mean, I remember how I discovered Nirvana for myself. Obviously, I didn't discover Nirvana for anyone, only for myself. Is that in 88, 89, I was studying at a college that was across the road from a record shop, X Records in Bolton. Now, I used to go in there a lot, so the guys knew me. So then when you've reached that level where the guy in the shop starts talking to you about what's coming in, you've reached a new level, haven't you, in terms of your...
Exactly.
And he shows me Bleach and says, I think you'll like this. They sound like Mudhoney. That was the conversation. I didn't even listen to it. I just bought it and took it home.
Totally. I had the same thing with Bleach. It blew my mind. I was such a fan of Bleach when it came out, and all our friends. So we were really celebrating it. And I saw as well the early Nirvana shows. Then the Nevermind came out, and I really loved it. But it took a year till it got big somehow. I already overheard it. I had to stop listening to it when it became big, because it came out and it took along for the mainstream industry to bring it in everybody's home. But when it came out, it was a blast. And I saw as well the shows, and there were not many people, it was full, but not, there was a hype, a coolness hype about it. But it was not 2,000 people audiences, more 300, 400. So this whole time was really exciting and led to so much other experiments, where I got totally triggered by, throughout till now, like I'm really, it's funny that Jay became my brother-in-law, like it's kind of crazy because this is the only band I started when the band started, and I stayed with that band as a fan. And I even painted the first Dino cover as a teenager at art school, made a remake of it, a weirder one. Just left the sun in the corner and made a new thing, and it's still hanging over my parents' bed. So it's kind of funny. In 80, when the record came out in Germany, I would do artworks, and the picture was like hanging over my parents' bed as a present. So, and then he became my brother-in-law. So that is kind of cool.
Very cool.
As a
very cool. Now that sort of answers half the first question. So if Jay's your brother-in-law, where does the conversation between you and your brother-in-law begin and start to ferment into what becomes Freakscene, the documentary?
When I met Jay in '93 at a wedding, and for me, I was coming. My sister moved to New York as a model, was really connected with the music scene. I think it started that Evan Dando came. Lemonheads played in Berlin, and they would hang out. He would come to my parents' house for Christmas, which was crazy. He was like as crazy as we know about Evan. Like good looking, super talented guitar player and songwriter. So I enjoyed that. And I would arrive in New York in '91 and would be there every year because Jesse Parrott's his band member is a music video director who did like as well the Foo Fighters videos, early ones, the first one. Okay. So I would witness the filming of short films and music videos in New York, which inspired me and made me so psyched. I was already doing photography. I have maybe a certain video autism or photo autism because my neighbor, Alec Empire, who is the singer of the band Atari Teenage Riot, he's like next door. We grew up in one street, we're early friends. And my dad had a video camera. So I had from '96 on already, I would film video live shows, and he had a band. So I was already very interested in, if I have a camera live, I would film or photo camera. So in '91, I arrived. Then '93, I met Jay at a wedding. There was the Smashing Pumpkins just came from studio recording for Siamese Dream. They were all Bullet La Volta members at the wedding. And then I was like in a dream setup. And then all of a sudden, Jay crashes into the party in a purple suit and a cowboy hat and a gift where I had to laugh so much, a stone duck, a duck made out of stones. And that was so absurd. I was like, wow, I can't believe it. My favorite kind of music artist, he's really here. So he had an easy, I was a fan and of course interested. So we started talking and people looked at us. His manager, Jane Billick, was Nirvana manager as well. She was wondering, oh, wow, these guys really talk. Jay is talking so easy. So it was really funny. And we became right away friendly, he liked as well. I did already first short films with Alec having soundtrack done and the first 2 Atari videos, which were really digital hardcore and new at that time. So Jay is a hardcore fan and he liked it immediately, and they even sampled one riff for a track of Dinosaur and called it Riot. Just Riot, just one riff sample. So that made made us friends. And Jay would even, he invited me to Alaska right away to maybe do a photo shoot. So we would go to Alaska to look for pumpkin big strawberries, which is supposed to grow there, which we didn't found. So we had the mission to go to Alaska to a strawberry field where pumpkin big strawberries to make a photo like on the first album, but with Shay in strawberries. We didn't found it, but we were going to Mount McKinley and to the weirdest places, and I made photos. So that was my first collaboration with Shay, and he liked my music videos. So over the years, I would do as well the last Dinosaur Jr. video in '97. And so we became friends and collaborators artistically.
Okay. And that's so with that collaboration in mind then, so where did the energy come to go make a documentary then? Because there's one thing to get on and be collaborators, there's another to take on the task of making a documentary.
Yeah, I would. Jay was so cool that when I played him Atari Teenage Riot, that he would take them as a support band for some really cool Euro gigs. So they would. We showed up in Amsterdam, Alec and me and the band, and I was already supported by an uncle who gave me a really amazing Beaulieu camera, which the Nouvelle Vague used often. You could rewind the film and do double exposures. So I had 16 millimeter on board, and I would just film whenever I could. And Dinosaur, so my first recordings on film about Jay were in '95 in Hamburg and Amsterdam. There as well in the movie. And
okay.
So I realized, oh my God, I love that so much. So when Dinosaur broke up, there was a short silence about him, but he would do the J Mascis and the Fog touring an album with Mike Watt on the bass. So I would immediately, then the music, the video age, the mini DV cameras popped out in '97. So I would be like really flexible and could film hours, So I would film always the whole shows and whatever, and nobody cared because I'm a friend, and they forgot about my little box in the hand. So I had really luck. And I would film, if Jay would come to Berlin, I would usually have it filmed for myself or even with other people. There's a lot of multi-cam recordings from Berlin we did. And, then the Stooges thing happened that Jay, Mike Watt, and the Ashton brothers toured in 2003 and made the tribute to the Stooges of the first album, The Funhouse. And then the real reunion happened 2005. And my sister was marrying Jay in 2004, I think. So when the reunion happened, I was really often as well in the States, and we witnessed everything, and I would record as well everything. And then we got a job off the band to do a reunion DVD, and we did that. And that's where kind of in 2006, I would say the idea to start documenting seriously the band became, like an action. And we selected, and it was really, time passed. Indie labels wouldn't give money, or we would do DIY financing. Jay supported it by flying me over often, or I could be on tour, like as a friend. And, and Jay always said, I don't know if this film will ever be finished, but and there was the time, all right, that's interesting. Now we have everything. There were the first people interested in the US in 2016. I was sitting with a big company, and they wanted me to do a mini series about the band. So I wrote the script for it, but then somehow there were like some weird things that another person at the end who was supposed to help making it, realizing wanted to do it herself. So I had to kind of cancel it. And maybe it got canceled because I didn't want it to hand it over to somebody else, So, but then I found partners in Germany. They're called Rapid Eye Movies, and they're basically responsible since the mid-90s to bring Japanese and Asian movies and Indian movies to Europe. So they kind of introduced all these films on DVD to the European audience, and they got really big and an amazing taste. And I was anyway inspired by Japanese films a lot, and 90s was a great time for a lot of feature films from Japan, which blew my mind. So I knew these people since a long time, and I run into the boss at a film festival where we came from the toilet, and I said, "Hey, how are you?" And he said, "Hey, good. What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm looking for Dinosaur Jr. documentary fundings." And he said, "Sounds good. Let's talk about it."
So it's really been a combination of a sort of labor of love for you that you were constantly documenting them anyway. And then it kind of reached a point of critical mass where it's like, hold on a minute, we should make the movie.
Yeah, the movie, the not made movie screamed to me in my unconscious, I want to get done now. Fuck it. Stop it and get it done. So at some point it really was like that. And I prepared, I went to Jay's to get some interviews in winter, and I had to prepare something like a 10-minute preview for the Rapid Eye people that they know what I plan on. And that led to a 45 minutes edit already. I couldn't stop then. It was awesome. So I noticed, oh, wow, this is going good. If there's money, and we only were looking for post-production funding. And so I just wanted to get paid that the edit is done. So, and that happened. And it was as well really crazy process, because there are maybe 600 hours of footage.
God, yeah.
On two hard disks, altogether 12 terabyte from all different years. And I already collected. I was really happy that Lee Ronaldo of Sonic Youth had a video camera already in '86. So he would film the young Dino Boys and Sonic Youth themselves, really young in their 20s, doing the Evil tour together. And he supplied me with amazing, really early footage. And then I found out about a fan from the US who is like a professor, archive professor, like a really, studying it. And he collected every show ever taped.
Dear me.
It was insane.
Yeah.
So there were two video nerds totally getting together. A lot of stuff I got from the band. Yeah. The original footage, he had copies and copies. And so we would team up and would meet when I would be in the States and go through everything. And that was a big help, to have year by year, many bands, because of the video technology, there was footage of nearly every year or every show. So it was really exciting, but a big mountain.
Can I go back to something you said before? Because I think this is something that before I was going to speak to you and before I knew that you had the relationship with Jay and stuff, is that you said that when you first met him, the manager and people were going, "Oh, look, Jay's talking." And I think that Jay talking is notoriously when I used to read his interviews, certainly in the late 80s, early 90s in the English music press, it was how difficult it was to get two sentences out of Jay. And I was fortunate enough to interview him when he was promoting the Jay Mascis and the Fog in the noughties. Mm-hmm. And before I was doing, and I was nervous because I was aware of this reputation for not talking. And interestingly, a German photographer friend of mine who lives in Britain now, she photographed him for Kerrang or something like that. And apparently he never said a word the entire photo shoot. She's talking away and he never said a word. And then when the photo shoot was finished, Jay just stops and says, "Do you dream in English or German?" And that was his only conversation the entire photo shoot. And when I spoke, as you can, I've done a podcast for a long while, and I think talking to you can tell I like talking. And so I had to sort of, and I'm on the phone to Jay with an early noughties phone call. So there's a delay on the conversation. And I'm having to just stop myself every time I ask a question, waiting for...
You're right. Totally right. Totally right. What you did is a smart thing. Jay is talking to people, but he needs, it's exactly what I always say when, like in the last interviews for the film, a lot of journalists, and I can understand it, they come to make a question and then there's no answer. And then the seconds can get cruel, I believe. The seconds of silence can be really annoying. So Jay is not, he just forms maybe his thoughts and it takes a while. So in the moment he would answer, people would ask him already the next question. And that's where often a lot of silence came. But as he admits for himself, he could be quite an kind of bad boy about it. Like he was kind of, I don't want to say it, he could be mean and would ignore it, or like it wasn't always that he needed time to answer. He was just often like he had the right attitude or was like having a bad day and he would just not being in the mood to answer. It's possible as well. But I found out over the years, mostly it's that he needs a moment to answer and you have to wait till it comes out. Even now, I'm like on the phone with him. We're talking about stuff. Sometimes it takes really 30 seconds or stuff. And if it's a question who is essential, I just wait. And then at some point, I hear that, maybe it's kind of funny. Like I'm used to it, so it doesn't bother me. But I can understand if strangers, put fuel in the fire and they just can agree that he's not talking.
Yeah.
So
no, because that's a bit. That was my experience. Is that because I just I let the question hang. He eventually answered. We had a wonderful conversation about British oi music, and he loved it. It was like and that was a big surprise for me.
He really loves. Like it's so funny that maybe I think that all from that people of that generations or that time who were involved as a musician or as a consumer or fan, I think it all bonded the energy together, or like it all put everybody somehow with the energy together because people listen to punk, and everybody who witnessed punk rock music in form of hardcore or whatever, that had for me such a big impression. And I would listen to punk rock when I was like 13, 14, from hardcore to oi music, from Jam 69 to, and especially British music had a very important impact on me, from The Clash to Sex Pistols, whatever. And Jay is a big hardcore oi fan as well. He was never listening, of course, to right-wing oi, but the energy, or like we would all be anti-fascist, but the energy of, a lot of stuff just was so awesome and had an impact on the music. And you hear it even in Dinosaur still, that their live shows, you have like all these, you have songs, kind of hits, you have normal, then you have like total noise solely, but then you have as well a fast punk rock hardcore track in a live set, which could be oi or something. So it's interesting how all these past punk rock elements have still maybe somehow an impact on a live show of the band.
But I think it plays into what you were saying before about. I think it plays into that idea of when you used to discover music, because it was interesting, that it would have just been a record that Jay would have got hold of, plays the record and like, I've not heard anything like this. There's no context around it. It's just, this is an extreme record and I've found another one, kind of thing. And it was, and in that, because there was no internet just to go and check it out. And I was interested in it, like I said at the start, I got on board with Dinosaur Jr. at Bug, and what I didn't know at the time, and it took me years to find out, because I honestly didn't, because I never thought to look, I never thought there was a soap opera behind the band. obviously your documentary.
Me either. I didn't know it either. That the story I investigated was like an investigation like Columbo or something, you know. By talk with the fans, I was, for example, not, I didn't follow Sabado. I knew that he left the band.
See,
but
I did, you see, I did. And that was kind of, for me, I knew Lou had left and formed Sebado, but I didn't realize kind of the schism that had happened at the time. And it's weird to think that this album that I love so much is kind of the product of the aftermath of Dinosaur Jr. as was. You know, Pulido, that's on You're Living All Over Me. I really loved it. And that was what led me to Sebado. So by 91, I'm listening to Sebado 3 and thinking this is the most amazing thing since sliced bread. And at the same time, you've got Green Mind and The Wagon. And they just sat side by side for me. It wasn't like it was anything particularly wrong.
Same here. Like our friend, my friend Christoph Ellinghaus, he's the City Slang record company guy who he signed, I think Sabado was on his label. So for me, I love just Jay's guitar play. Maybe that's why I followed more Jay, because of his guitar. I love the guitar play so much. But the Sabado, Lou did amazing stuff, and I didn't know anything. I only heard they hate each other. That's the other Dino guy. I thought Lou has a better voice than Jay, or at that time, or you know, like from the taste or something. But I couldn't identify anything too much, you know, too much information. And I found the whole teenage drama about Jay and Lou, I found out by talking to Jay, all the bands. I basically researched during the interviews and footage and family members. So I didn't know about it as well till a couple of years. I knew that it was mad. And when I found the footage of Jay and himself attacking Jay and Lou attacking themselves on stage, we have that in the movie. Spoiler alarm, but it's okay to mention it. Then I even found the footage where, you know, like the aggressions even became physical. We have it in the movie. And Pulido, for example, you mentioned the track Pulido on the You're Living All Over Me album. That had an amazing impact on me. I was at home alone. My parents were gone, and we had our first cookie with marijuana as a, you know, what you do in the 80s. And I was like flying away on Pulido. So it's kind of funny, like, you know, I sometimes think maybe at that night I saw the scene which we have in the film. Who knows?
Who knows? But that whole soap opera that you cover is brilliantly summarized by Kim Gordon when she says that it's really a psychotic family. There's a certain psychotic state that is being a band. This band that was formed out of 3 people that came together at school, and then as they get older, they become their individual selves, which is who they want to be. And it begins to not fit. But they're in a band, and that plays into that. So it's like, you know, like you pick your friends, but not your family. It's almost like you don't pick your band in a way. You kind of, once you've got a band, you're stuck with them like family.
It's totally like that. I love as well Kim's appearance because it's so wise and smart as well. From she was a real time witness of them, you know, and anyway, such a pleasure to watch and how she talks in the film. I really love it. And she just sums it up, as you said, so perfectly. And, you know, for example, Jay, he's saying something else about, you know, I realized that the band has its own, you know, it's one body, like Charles of the Pixies describing it in a weird way. You know? So a band is one conscious, maybe no matter how many individuals are involved, but the body is the group at the end of the day, you know, and that body was just not functioning anymore. And then, of course, something gets sick. And that's what happened. For example, Jay always saying, these days I buy a guitar and I hope the body gives me a new song.
Okay.
I find a new song in this body, and a band is like that as well. It's about energy. It's getting together for the band. Maybe the 3 first years that's why the band was so good, because there was the tension. It was always that if tension in the band triggers, that it can be competition, it can be just hate, it can be anger, so many elements, but it has an impact on the music. And
Almost 90% of women have cellulite. And guess what? It's not their fault. We don't choose cellulite, but we can choose a different way to treat it. Meet Quo, collagenase Clostridium histolyticum, AAES, the first and only FDA-approved prescription injectable for moderate to severe cellulite in the buttocks of adult women. This non-surgical treatment is injected by an aesthetic specialist in 10 minutes or less. Individual results may vary. Do not receive if you are allergic to any collagenase or ingredients in Quo, or have an infection at the treatment site. May cause serious side effects, allergic reactions including anaphylaxis, and injection site bruising. Seek medical help right away for any signs of allergic hypersensitivity. Tell your doctor about all your medical conditions if you have a bleeding condition or take medicine that prevents clotting. Most common side effects include bruising, pain, hardness, itching, redness, discoloration, swelling, and warmth at the injection site. Ask your doctor about all possible side effects and for product information. If you're ready to get to the bottom of your cellulite, learn more and find a specialist at quo.com.
We have many examples in music history that it is like that. So I think the anger Jay and Lou had for themselves at some point maybe made the band even better.
Yeah,
possible, or that.
But also it's that kind of anger that only really exists, that you only really get through like sibling rivalry. It's almost like, the unconditional love of each other is the reason why they don't easily walk away. Because if you're friends with somebody, you can kind of choose your friends and sort of think, I won't bother. But in a band, you kind of, that unit, you know that some things work well. So you wouldn't want to destroy it all. You try and work through. But obviously, I mean, getting stuck in the desert on a tour for a week, if it was a metaphor, it'd be perfect. But the fact it really happened to sort of, and I think it plays in, I think people who've not been in bands or not worked with bands don't realize how little money there is, how how uncertain your future is, and the idea of being stuck somewhere.
Hey, it's like being stuck on an island. What we always say, hey, what kind of book or which person would you take if you're stuck on an island? Yeah. And that in a really weird, abstract way, that happened to them emotionally. Yeah. That they were trapped in one hotel room together. They had no money. I even witnessed it as a teenager. I was with not so much money on one travel with a friend. And we were we would get upset if somebody or my friend got upset that I once got a bigger portion for the same price or stuff. So it's like you're a child, you're 15, 16. The band was, I think, 18, 19 or something. Yeah. So it's like irrational things, not understandable for an outsider, but maybe understandable if you witnessed it yourself, how exactly what you said, that you have no money, you don't know if you make it to the next city, you are stuck there, then, there's like all the energy, all the anger gets out. And that's what probably happened to them. And we have that in the movie, like a weird David Lynch moment, like where you're like,
When you had all those terabytes of information, and obviously you went out and did some contemporaneous footage as well, how did you map out or pull together what is the narrative of Freakscene?
Somehow I decided for myself, somehow you have to start somewhere, like with you're standing in front of the Mount Everest and there are many ways and you choose one up. So it felt like that as well. So I was alone doing it. And I just, to get into it, I decided that I tried to go from the timing, that I don't run or switch to tell the story. It doesn't matter now then later it didn't matter if the footage is new or people talk over it, but I wanted to have it that it starts with the start of the band, and we kept it. I forgot the English word.
So it's chronological order.
I decided to do it chronologic to start because, of course, kind of it's my past, and the youth of the band is such an exciting time, and that's where a lot of stuff happens, and it's very interesting. So I started like that, and
out of interest then, knowing now what I know just from our brief conversation, how did you keep, given your own sort of parallel history of being a fan was part and parcel of it, how did you keep yourself separate from the story? Because obviously it would have been easy for you to put yourself in it and go, and this is what was happening.
You know, it's interesting as well that you say that. For example, I had a business partner who joined me. I was like here in Berlin doing a lot of music video projects and live recordings for DVD. And I had a partner, and my ex-girlfriend was on board as well. So we would follow Dino with a car full of cameras. And there was, for example, my business partner, he liked the idea that we are filmed as well as, like, you know, that it has a more road movie character.
Yeah. And
I don't know why, but I always didn't like the idea. You know, I thought it's not about us or me. And, you know, it's an approach, an idea. I think it's an okay idea. But that, when that was done, it was 2005. So when I, in 2018, finally had funding to go into editing, I realized, it's a film about them and not me or us or anything. So I'm not in the movie. Even I think there's one frame I put in as a joke where you see Kevin Shields, me, and Jay being at the reunion in Reading in the backstage. But it's a frame only because we have like, I have like one moment in the film where there's basically from 85 to 2018 or 19, just frame by frame, 25 different frames from that time till, so like a time lapse of their history. And there's one frame of me, but I kept myself out, and I went in editing to do the raw edit. My fan autism or something, how I would call it, was more that there's a 4-hour version, of course, about it with so much stuff more, and of course not as compressed, but the raw edit for the film is basically 4 hours, band and other time witnesses talking about the band, all details more. And of course we filtered emotionally as well a lot of stuff. So of course the film wouldn't be a 4-hour thing, but how we condensed it now, my producer Stefan of Rapid Eye Movie was at the end with me at the edit, and was really liberating for me to have as well a third brain involved, you know, like to kind of censor my private and fan attaches, you know, to the project. So, and he's exactly, I think, Jay's age. So that was a great help, you know, to filter out as well the necessary, or, you know, that it stayed like really on the band only, you know. So I had help from my producer in the most important moments about it. And so at some point we were at an 82-minute version, and I was really excited. There will be a DVD release next March, which will have, of course, a lot of really cool bonus features.
Excellent. You know, excellent.
Because we decided the edit I did, if something from in the long version, there's so much amazing stuff. So we kept it as well like a record. So we called it the main edit is the A side.
Yeah. And
the stuff which didn't made it on the A side is the B side. That will be later for the DVD. So fantastic. The B side, so there's a B side of the film. And this is like, I think in 2 weeks I start taking it all out, and we will prepare it for the release in March in Germany. So all European DVD formats, or the streaming, this will take a little bit because of the funding, and there's like all the stuff, but we get probably later to it. So
no, I was going to say
the whole footage.
I was going to say the practicalities of what you've described so far of making this film. You've got your footage, you've got that super archivist, you've got Lee Ronaldo doing stuff, you've got your contemporaneous stuff. From a kind of copyright point of view, when you're making this film and getting things cleared, what represented the sort of biggest challenges in terms of clearing stuff so you could have it in the film? Was there any aspects of it that were because obviously it can become just a simple choice of, can we afford it, can we not? I know people that have made music documentaries where that's literally it's no longer an artistic decision. It's just, can we afford to have this in, and how much do we want it in?
I was crazy, I have to say. I would not think. I would just put in the film what I liked. And Jay is as well producer of the movie. Like at the end, like we have Dinosaur Jay as a co-producer in the film because he supported the film. He put a lot of money in my travel and invested a lot of money as well that this is possible.
Yeah.
And I didn't care too much about the stuff till we were done. Then
is that a good idea? Is that a good idea?
Guys, oh snap! My producer said, "All right, so but you know that we need like clearances," and I said, "Yeah, all right, of course." Most of the stuff I have the names, and I will make it happen. So when we were done, I had to deal with it, and I hated myself for it because it is like really research. Like I always say, I'm a Columbo fan, so I'm a crime story fan, and I like really complicated cases. But for me, it was really private investigator work because I had to investigate on pictures which I didn't know the copyright holder, of course. And I had it took quite a while to make it happen and to contact the people, have them answer. There's a lot of friends involved in the film, Jay's friends, who took the most important the most important photos. So a lot of groundwork was already clear, but then there was a lot of unknown people. I had to find out names, emails, and I had to do it by myself. So it was a kind of painful for a couple of months. And then I had to, often people then think once you don't know them, that you're doing the blockbuster film here, and they thought that there's like a lot of money involved when there isn't, and I had to really be on a carpet market sometimes about, people thought that there's a lot of money to get from me when there wasn't, and I had to make them realize it, but somehow it worked out, I was tough for me. I'm not when it comes to financial business, making deals, I'm like, I had to do it, but I didn't like it.
I think I like to ask documentarians that I've had on before is about what did you learn about the subject that surprised you, that you didn't know going into it? Now, obviously, your story starts almost like in the 90s, and the mythology of this documentary that'll never get made, it's a joke between you and Jay, and then it reaches this point of where it's got to break through the glass ceiling and be made. So when you're in that mode of, we're making a documentary now, as opposed to I'm archiving and documenting Dinosaur Jr. and Jay, what for you was a big surprise? Was there any surprises for you to discover in the process of making what became the narrative of Freakscene?
Yeah, there was like, it was always like, my philosophy, I love, I believe in the power of chaos and the moment in which come where, or situations where you put into in your life.
Yeah.
So I'm flexible every day and I learn every day, and the process of putting the film together taught me so much, because I know how to do a documentary by myself. It's all homemade. I did the edit on my iMac at home. So that made me really strong in a way to start and doing it. And for example, I had really, of course, I was never sure. We showed Jay the film when the film was done. It was a big risk. So I came to New York, to the...
Hold on a second. You've pulled the film together and then you're showing Jay what you've done.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Go on, tell me more.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I was so happy that everybody gave me the trust in doing that, and that they gave me really freedom. Management, everybody was not saying anything to me till I showed anything. And Jay is the deciding person. And I wanted as well, already in the contracts or anything, as when you're a family, and he's the husband of my sister, you have to be even double careful. Even sounds like, oh yeah, it sounds, hey, your family. No, it's even more difficult, because there's no fuck up allowed. Or from my end, I had that was my mission, no fuck ups allowed, which could interfere with our relationship. And I mean, that's a big deal if you make a movie.
Yeah.
I granted Jay the right from the beginning that he has word on the final cut. I thought that's important as well for me. He has to be good. He has to feel good with the film about himself. And I'm not doing a boulevard documentary where I want to spit on everybody and be sensationalist on Bathing and Jay's and Lou's anger, or putting fuel in the fire. It was different. I thought we were really sensitively.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not. You've not done what they call a puff piece. I mean, it's definitely it definitely confronts the problems between the individuals. I mean, and I made a note that you could argue at some point the way the story's told and the way they talk about each other, where you go, there's a fine line in terms of Jay between being enigmatic and just being a wanker. I mean, it's like this.
Totally.
And you don't have to say that explicitly, because it's there in the conversations. It's like, but it was really interesting to hear that, to sort of begin to think that, and we do it, and that's a rock star thing, isn't it? We do it with rock stars all the time. We let people off lots of frailties because we go, yeah, but the music's good.
Yeah, and for it was exactly like you're saying. It was, Lou was harsh and tough as well, and my idea was like, hey, the first edit was it was so many edits, and then more stuff got thrown in, but the story, the raw edit is only the band talking, and that was my philosophy. That everybody can say what he likes. There is no censorship from my end. There is, of course, you at some point this maybe is too harsh to say. Of course, there's a sensitivity, to make everybody heard, but not to put fuel in the fire, afterwards. I don't have to, have an opinion about it. I show it, what happened.
Yeah.
But when Jay, so I came to 2019 to the States with a film in the package to my sister's birthday. So there was a big celebration.
No pressure then.
It was crazy. He was in the house, Megan Chess, but there were people in the building when I arrived for the festivities, and it was insane. And I was so scared. I thought that we did a good job, and I loved the band so much. And I hope that it gets that I'm representing it right, the right energy. And so Jay, I said, okay, then the second day I arrived, I said to Jay, hey, do you want to check it out? And he said, all right, let's do it. And I was like, oh shit, now pants down. So he was working on his desk in the living room, watching it. The first time I was in the kitchen with sweat, and I could have, I'm not a person who cries or something, but I had the feeling I want to cry now. You know, like, because so much stuff, what happens if he hates it? He could say now, I fucking hate it, man. All was possible. And then my sister, after 20 minutes, passed by, and Jay did that to her.
Ah, okay.
Gave me that sign.
I should say for the listener, because we're only going to hear the audio, you've just given me the thumbs up that Jay gave to his wife, your sister.
Yeah. And my sister came to me and said, hey, he gave me his thumbs up. He doesn't feel threatened by it. So that was the first. That was after 20 minutes, the first.
But I guess that's the sensitivity, isn't it? Because if you're allowing you to tell somebody else's story, then you've got a point of view, and you're also melding lots of other points of view to tell that story. Yeah,
and so I was like, okay, that's a good sign. And then he watched it, and we didn't talk for hours about it, but maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And he said it's good. Like, he's surprised by it. It's rough, and he's really surprised by Murph. I mean, he knows about Lou and himself, but having Murph, kind of a red line between them. Murph talks a lot, you know, like, and he is like a neutral version. So who is he loves Lou and Jay, you know, so he would be honest. But
I guess as well, though, because Murph doesn't have the music career that Lou has after Dinosaur Jr. And when he was in Dinosaur Jr., he wouldn't have been the one doing interviews. So I guess your documentary becomes the first time not ever, but maybe one of the first times he gets to put on record what it was like being in Dinosaur Jr. Because everybody's asked Jay and everybody's asked Lou over the years in various interviews, because it's always been a kind of bubbling story. But Murph's never been there. So you're right. He is like a Switzerland, isn't he, in the band? Yeah, it's totally true. Like, and Murph, I mean, he's really smart in what he's saying. And Jay was really wow. And then it was interesting. So I was psyched that all didn't look too bad. And then I went, I got invited from the band to join the tour as well again, because they had then a West Coast tour. And I got even invited to do visuals. So I had my whole package of the whole craziness, and I did video mix of old videos. And it's a real psychedelic journey as well a punk rock with flyers and huge projections. And it went great. And of course, I couldn't stop my video autism. So I even went on filming on that tour. And that was, thanks God I did it, because it gave the last round of touring, you know. And we had Kurt Weill on tour. He was fun. Another generation, you know, talking about Dino. Yeah. It was which nice bit was as well important. And so at the end, I went back to the editing right after it over Christmas. And Jay was cool. Like, I showed him then the what I did. And he even came with a really amazing idea to put, hey, maybe you put the end of us traveling for last time. Maybe that's a great end. So he even like had this great idea of, you know, how it's partial for, how it was like positioned and integrated what I filmed new. So really lucky it worked out. And, you know, like, that's what it became then. And I was really happy while I was clearing with everybody. Of course, I had to send it off everybody. The movie was watched by everybody who was on the screen. So I had to ask Henry, send them
And, you know, with rock stars, it's always anyway interesting. There's an abstract yes or no. It can be no answer, can be an answer, you know, or something. So it was really interesting as well to hear the feedback of all these kind of rock icons we have in the film. And I was really happy that everybody really liked it, and everybody involved didn't feel ashamed to be part of it, or, you know, or made it difficult. Or so there was, like, so far really helpful. You know, everybody was really helpful, and people shouldn't forget as well, that's really, we had a minimum funding for the post-production, you know, to have the color correction and the audio mastered right and the editing. But it is a DIY film. You know, what we spent on the film, I don't think that we get that back somehow. You know, there's like, basically since 94, 5, I know Jay is coming into Germany so much, and I was on so many tours. So I just hope that it treats the band right, and it transports the energy of their characters and their music right.
Well,
I think
the mix. Yeah, I think the mix of media, because of the traverse of time, you know, when the footage was taken, the length of the time the band has been around as a thing, and obviously the narrative arc of them coming back together was a lovely part. But in a way, the mixed media and the story being told in hindsight was kind of like, it gave it like almost like an abstract painting quality to it, because we're now looking at media that's we're not used to seeing anymore, but it's almost part and parcel of the memory of that you're trying to tell us. It's almost like the memory, you know, in a way that when you watch a black and white film, it's hard to imagine the world in color. It's like, it's hard because you're so used to seeing that raw. I mean, I used to buy bootleg videos of VHSs. And so to me, that's how I saw music live that I didn't physically get to go to, or even versions of gigs that I attended were in that rough and ready kind of feel. So to me, that felt as authentic as anything that you could film today on a HD camera, because that's how it looked in 1991, you know, or that's how it looked in 87, you know. It's like, it's not.
Exactly. It was we only had that traces of technology. And I like, you know, I'm a music video director. I know surfaces and differences. And I have to say it, like, where I come from as an artist, I'm known from people called me, even at Rotterdam Film Festival, a visual cannibal. So I would have, you know, I'm a new generation. I was in the 90s, really a new generation, playing with that digital technology the first time, what electronic bands were able to do 4 or 5 years before. The same happened with video. So the Alec Empire and Atari people and we were about energy, you know, even unjust. Our content was about, you know, had punk elements and was anti-fascist, anti-racist, and, you know, the whole thing, so the visuals, I would do as well live video mixing in the 90s. And I, you know, like visual noise, creating visual noise. And for me, it was as well really a job to give the film and the footage a surface which fits, you know, with all the different, you know, the film starts really, like you said, the mid 80s video technology, and rough and, you know, really raw, you know, and it pumps up through with the quality of the footage. And I tried to include weird double exposures, psychedelic elements. I combined double exposed old footage with new footage when they're older and when they're young in one picture, which I thought was a great idea, you know, when they have their reunion shows, their first, where they're really back on stage again. To start that, you have young Jay and young band double exposed with the new reunited band. So they're visually probably the the zeitgeist of each decade visually as well.
Yeah. No, it's a good.
And I like that. I was like playing with it and having fun at the end with it as well.
Yeah. It's interesting that there's a kind of subtext of a technological journey as well as a band story journey at the same time, which is kind of nice.
My daughter, the friends came. They're like in their I became a really early dad, so I have a 23-year-old daughter and a 25-year-old son. And it was funny when they came to the screenings. One friend said, "Oh, it's amazing that you have all these cool hip Insta filters." Listen, this is how footage looked like. This is like
that's amazing.
That's so cool. She thought that I had hey, come on, that's how you created noise, pixels. It has effects on that's the picture of that time, and it's kind of funny. Of course, I would play with it, but it's like technically, just as a music video person, of course, you play with anything, with the content and surface of the picture. So for me, I had at the end.
One last thing, Philip, is that there's a lasting thing that I think will stay with me forever in terms of your documentary is there's a sliding door moment in the band's life where, and it's literally just stepped over in your story because it's obviously a minor moment, but even though it's a minor moment, it could have been something else. The idea that Jay gets invited to join Nirvana is something that my mind can't even contain. It's like, because obviously bands that were touring, bands that were friends, I mean, you saw the grunge scene and everything, how band members interchanged. So that's perfectly rational that, Nirvana, Sonic Youth, no Dinosaur Jr. Dinosaur Jr. imploded. Hey, Jay, join Nirvana. But obviously that never happened. But the idea that might have been a thing blows my tiny mind.
It always blows my mind. It was so funny. Jay is so dry in his answers sometimes. When I ask him, of course, I ask him, wait, what happened? And he said, the Kurt after show came and they were sick of, or there was tensions with the guitar player and, or was the drummer? I don't remember right. But Jay, as he said in the film, the band was bigger than Nirvana at that time. So, and he was as well at a point, he just lost, it was in that time when Lou left and Merv. And then, for example, in the film where the time Jay was playing with Mike Johnson or the time from 91 till 97, with the dinosaur, the practical dinosaur more. I wanted to keep Lou, Jay, the original members to focus on. So that's why people always ask me, I say, hey, I would have loved to have more of the Green Mind time and stuff. And they're all infos about it, but I didn't go deeper into it because as well that I couldn't get Mike Johnson somehow interviewed. It wasn't working. I made a couple of efforts, but it didn't happen somehow. And I thought as well from the story, maybe it would have been different with that time. Maybe it would have been more precise about that era of dinosaur, from 91 till there. But somehow, because of that, we decided to focus really on the original members as well, since they got back, and it had its own human transaction somehow, and its own story. So I kept George Bertz and Mike Johnson. They're in it, but not as detailed in all details, even though the first, as I mentioned, the 4-hour edit I did, there is a lot of more stuff, of course, in it. There's everything in it. So, but at the end, when the fine-tuning of the film happened, it was clear that we really go on Lou, Jay, and Merv. that's the red line, storyline, and we stick to that.
I know that I could talk to you for a lot longer than this. We can end up with 2 terabytes of conversation, which would be nice, but I don't think it'll do. I think we've got things to do today. So I'll just thank you for giving us your time on the Britflicks podcast.
Very happy we did that.
No, me too. Freakscene, The Story of Dinosaur Jr. is out now. People can get it on VOD platforms where they get their VOD platforms. And like you've already said in the interview, come spring 2022, there should be a DVD with all these extras of that big cut that people won't see in the finished film.
Yeah, and there will be still a lot of we're still doing the festival tour. There's we had the Germany and the UK. We had theatrical releases, and this will spread on. We have new partners, can't say the name yet, but we have a US Word distribution, a really good company we're really happy with. So the film will be spread properly next year in the US and throughout the world. And as I said, for Europe, there's a DVD release 8th of March.
Brilliant.
With MailChimp, you get more than a URL. You get an all-in-one marketing platform to help drive sales. With things like data-driven recommendations and powerful automation tools. Get started today at MailChimp.com/smartmarketing. MailChimp, built for growing businesses.
Across the country, hate crimes are on the rise by more than 25% in the last 5 years. The good news is there's something you can do about it right here in your community. If you witness or experience a hate crime, you're not alone, and the FBI is here to help and commit it to justice. Report hate crimes at 1-800-CALL-FBI or tips.fbi.gov. Protecting our communities together. Report hate crimes.